it's Mountain Monday, and because it's the Monday after Star Wars The Force Awakens came out, these are the mountains of Alderaan. I miss you, Alderaan. So you know what to do because it's Mountain Monday. We breathe in and out and breathe in and out. Now, I made 2 videos today, and I put them out around the same time because one was a thing about Star Wars. Because I wanted to sort of get it in while it was relevant, while people were still excited, but I didn't want people who haven't had a chance to see the movie yet to feel left out. So I'm sticking with the Mountain Monday video as well as making a Star Wars specific video, because I don't think it's fair for people to have to avoid all the stuff now that the movie's out and they couldn't see it at the first possible second. I have never quite understood the desire for websites to spew spoiler-filled stuff right on the evening the movie comes out. Like, there was stuff on the internet when that first freaking showing came out, and that's not fair. But there was a worse thing, and I get there's business realities, and people wanted the traffic, and people come out of the movie excited, and they get on the internet, and they want to see what other people are saying. I get that. But there was another class of deliberate spoilers that I want to talk about today, because the last laugh is on them. There were some people deliberately spoiling Star Wars for people, sending people major plot points just to be assholes. And I have a real hard time understanding, other than the most surface motivations for this sort of thing. I mean, I understand, on the surface, they're doing it to be a dick. And some people were doing stuff so, like, total, full-blown, like, dark side asshole move, right? Like, they would spoilers and make them into a graphic and then send the graphic to everyone on their contact list, so the minute they see it, it's spoiled. Even to erase it, it's spoiled the minute they look. And it's a picture, so they're like, oh, fine. And so it's ruined. And apparently that's how one person got the movie spoiled that I talked to. People were posting things in their Twitter feeds. Somebody tried to spoil the movie for me in the same way, in retaliation for an out-of-context tweet that haters spread that I made as part of a longer conversation about a trailer for The Witcher 3. And this guy tried to spoil the movie for me and put in a reference to that tweet. Like, he was so angry 2 years later that he wanted to ruin something. Because the whole reason it's called a spoiler is people that have this perception that it ruins the movie for someone. Now, I believe the joke is on them, because I don't think Episode 7 is a movie that really can be spoiled. Every reveal is telegraphed so heavily for hardcore Star Wars fans who are the most excited about the whole thing that you see it all coming. You see it all coming. Every single big OMG that, less obsessed fans go, wow, it was telegraphed. And I'm not going to say what they are because this is the spoiler-free video for the day. And so all this really did for me, and I'm sure some people did feel like they had something taken away from them by having the movie spoiled. But more than a few other people I talked to who did have the movie spoiled said that it was sort of like knowing what happens in Game of Thrones, that it actually enhances the experience when you can see it coming. And I think that's very true. I think that for me, I appreciate it on a different level because I picked up on the foreshadowing. And I think that just like studying Shakespeare, where most people know the ending when they go in, watching how they get there is a completely different type of enjoyment. And Star Wars is one of those films that, I'm taking my mother to see. I took my mother, I forgot. I'm pre-recording this because I'm taking my mother to see it. And there are already things that I'm going to watch even closer the second time. So there's a completely different experience when you know it's coming. And so these assholes that wasted all this time wanting to ruin the movie for people just wasted their time. The rest of us are still going to have a great time. The rest of us are still going to talk about it. That temporary, oh, you piece of, is going to be gone. We're not even going to remember that even as anything more than sort of a funny story about the hype surrounding the film. But these people are so filled with anger, filled with fear, and so filled with rage that they thought of this and they did it, and they somehow justified it to themselves that this was somehow something that they should do. And I hope that none of them then turn around and call themselves a Star Wars fan, because the thing that people, are taught, the teachings of Yoda, is fear is the path of the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. And the whole idea about being a Jedi, and I did a little, how much of a Jedi versus Sith are you? I got like 91% Jedi. And I think I kind of skewed the results by answering a particular question because I didn't want to be too much of a brown noser. I am very, very much a Jedi in my personal morals and ethics. And I do believe that morals and ethics are a different thing. I think ethics are your framework for behavior. You're given an ethical code, and some people would say it's a moral code, but to me, morals are those gut responses. Like ethics are in the head, morals are in the gut to me. And ethics are the framework you build around your morals. That's just my personal philosophy. And I think in some ways, you can use your ethics to alter or refine your morals. You can create structures for yourself to get away from that fear, to get away from that anger, to get away from that hate. And the hardest thing to diffuse, the hardest thing to, rewire is that fear response. Anger, you can sort of walk it off. Hate is something you can definitely work to at least minimize. I realize that when I find myself really hating something, not so much. A lot of people say, oh, I hate that, but they don't really hate it. They dislike it. They don't walk around with that, burning emptiness in your gut that is true hatred. And, when I find myself really hating a person, I go, this isn't healthy. I have to figure out what's at the source of this hate, get to the bottom of it, and it's usually fear. Usually when you hate someone, it's because you're afraid of what they can do to you, and you use hate as a screen, as a shield against that fear, so you can continue to act with this person in your orbit. And it's a big drain on energy. I won't necessarily say it's a waste because it's a self-defense mechanism, but it is much more sort of psychologically energy efficient to work through that hate and figure out a way that you can, work on that base level of fear, make some changes so it's not so scary anymore, and get on with your life, because it's exhausting to be that angry and spiteful and fearful all the time. And I've had more than a few conversations over the weekend, because obviously a heightened awareness of all this stuff, because OMG Star Wars, right? All the Jedi teachings are fresh in my little nerdy mind. And so I'm really taken aback by these people who justify their hate response for things and don't catch themselves and go, this isn't healthy for me. And it's not healthy for you. No matter how you try to convince yourself otherwise, it's not healthy. It's not. I'm sorry, guys. It's just not. It is eating you from the inside. That's the difference between hate and anger. They're different things. Anger is something that you get angry and then you get over it. Hate is something that makes you do really bad things. And that is why it's something that you have to be hyper aware of the impact it's having on your behavior. And that's why if I'm in that, I really hate that moment, I avoid it. I go out of my way to not be in contact with that thing or that person until I can come at it from a more rational perspective, because I know I'm not going to be my best self in those moments. And why would I put myself in that situation? Unfortunately, there's this false veneer of toughness that we so glorify on the internet. And it's not toughness at all. It's actually weakness, that aggression that you see that people think is having a thick skin or toughness. It's actually not. Because the toughest people, the truly strongest people that I have ever met don't have to raise their voice. They don't have to do nasty things to other people. They don't have to take cheap shots or, try to get at someone. And those are the toughest, strongest, most resilient people I have met. So when I see strength, I see toughness, I think of that. I think that people that won't take that shot, who will focus on issues instead of people. And I've had a lot of people, surprising amount, I don't get this either, accusing me of taking the low road or taking a low shot, because I have talked about my own experiences with some very not nice people on the internet without naming names. I've certainly made references to their position because those positions are relevant to the discussion. But I don't name names. And that's because I am talking about it as an issue, not as an attempt to get back at the person. Is there a little bit of schadenfreude there? Yeah, I find it kind of funny that most of these people that come at me are raging hypocrites. But another part of me feels kind of sorry for them because, oh man, they have to be that, right? But it's fair. It's right. It's the whole Obama thing of a teachable moment for me to talk about things that happened. And if the position, especially if it's a position of power, actually, I only talk about bad experience with people in positions of power because if somebody's a jerk and they're like, have no ability to actually affect my life at all, why would I even talk about them? It's not worth it. It doesn't do anything to me. But I feel like part of what I'm here for is to give other people who want to get into sort of the geekosphere, some kind of geeky career, most notably video games, sort of a pathway. I want people to be able to learn from my mistakes and learn from my experiences and learn from my successes and not have to spend as much time figuring it out for themselves. I want to make it easier for people who have dreams and who have goals. And I don't want people to have to be as resilient as me. I want people to be able to take that energy and put it towards creating stuff. And so I do talk about what happened and I do provide details because I want people to know you don't have to be scared. If you get dogpiled on the internet, it's overwhelming at first, but it's certainly not the end of the world. And it's certainly not something that I think should have been as scary as the first few times it happened to me. Had somebody been there to tell me, like, look, it's going to be a lousy 72 hours, but it's mostly noise. The vast majority of people are going to completely forget about it or realize they were wrong. Never admit it, but just go away. Or try to strike up a conversation with you as if that, participating in that dog pile was just a way to get your attention. There will be a few people who will let it hang on forever, but the vast majority of people are gonna think those people are idiots. And, you know, the nice thing about getting that many people's attention is when the truth does come out, well, you've earned a certain amount of respect from the people that focus on a paradigm of respect. And you don't have to worry about them realizing they were wrong. They probably do. But they don't have the strength of character. They don't have the bravery to admit it to you. And there will some people who will never admit they were wrong. And those are the haters that go on for years and years and years. But think about the impact you've had on them, right? They are so running from something in themselves, and you make them face that something just by existing. That's super powerful. And everybody has to go on that journey in their own way, but it can be easier than it is for a lot of people who are stumbling around, you know, without mentorship. And that's what I'm trying to do through this, is I'm trying to sort of give people a pick-me-up and give people information and share my stories and share my perspective on things so that people can contextualize what's happening to them. And, you know, Boogie2988 is somebody who taught me how sharing some pretty personal stuff online helps other people. Like, have you guys seen that video he did about the whole weight loss thing? And the video that Diamond Dallas Page sent him? Holy crap. You know, his work makes me understand what it's like from a different perspective in life. Because, I mean, I've gotten called fat all my life because I'm not a skinny little rail. And so I thought I identified with what it was like to be an overweight person. But no, I had no idea what it was like. And so the stuff Boogie does is a little insight for me more accurately into what it's like to need to lose, you know, a whole lot of weight and to have it just be a complete uphill struggle all along the way, because you need to lose weight, and nobody actually tells you how to do that. And then people are really insensitive and don't realize that it's a lot harder than people think. Like, you know, people don't realize how difficult weight loss is. And this is the part I could relate to, because when I was on TV all the time, I was constantly on some sort of low carb, low fat, low this, high that diet. And I was tired all the time, and it was harder to think, and I constantly had headaches and my joints ached and all that stuff. And when I started eating more appropriately for brain work, I put on a bit of weight. But I found I could do my job better. But, you know, then there's that whole trade-off of people are going to call you fat. And I'm like, but you know what? I feel better. I feel healthier at this weight than I did 10 pounds lighter. And we're talking 10 pounds there, right? I mean, imagine if you added a 0. Or imagine if, you know, it was 200 pounds or 300 pounds that you needed to lose. It's a completely different mindset. And I didn't know that. And that's going to happen. And that's the scary thing. That's the fear you constantly have to fight when you're trying to make a difference. That you're going to be wrong. And you're going to say things that afterwards you find out, wow, that was, I mean, in some cases, like, that was really stupid. You know, and if you're afraid to explore deeper, if you're afraid to tread into dangerous spaces, you're never going to get better. And you should always have a place to go back to when things get a little too tough. But you can't live in safety all the time and achieve anything worthwhile. You have to step out among the wolves and get bit. And just hope you don't get rabies or a lethal infection. You know, I mean, that's just the truth. There's no way around that. And that's why I love Star Wars, because it's sort of the story of people doing that again and again and again. And that's why I didn't like the prequels. Because you know it was going to go. I was like, I don't want to see a story about a guy who's just mean and bad and gets meaner. I don't want to see that. I want to see the story of somebody who fights that urge, who fights that impulse, who struggles and wins. Right? That's what I want to see. That's what I need. That's the mentorship I'm lacking that I get through science fiction and fantasy. I mean, I think a lot of people, you know, the reason nerds like these things is they were so moral and they had such, you know, well-founded ethics in the end. And, you know, a lot of us getting into the fledgling world of computers, and especially video games where art meets tech, there were no mentors, really. There were no programs. There were, you know, most of the people I work with don't have degrees in video game design or something like that. Because when we started, there was no such thing as a degree in video game design, right? We were all trying to find our own path. And the stories, the fictional stories of elves and dwarves and robots and aliens and all that stuff gave us the mentorship we didn't have in, you know, our career goals, because there were no mentors. There was no path that I knew of. They kept putting me in these women in computers programs, but it was code. I didn't want to code. I wanted to tell stories. And I mean, we're just having this discussion now, a bunch of developers saying that video games now need more artists than coders. They need more people doing art than programming. And yet we keep saying, go into computers. No. Understand computers, but refine your art. And so there's still a lot of misunderstandings, and there's still a lack of mentorship. And I got mine from Star Wars. And that probably told you a whole lot more about me than I was intending, but that's the purpose of Mountain Mondays. And so let's wrap now. Let's do our breathing to end. Ready? Breathe in. And out. And breathe in.